The if statement in C is used to choose whether an action is executed or not. The general form looks like this. We start with the reserved word if, then we have a condition, some relational or Boolean expression that must be in parentheses, and then the action is the very next statement, whatever that happens to be. So if the value of the condition is true, we're going to execute the statement, and if the condition is false, we're just going to skip the statement entirely. So for example, let's say we have a number variable called num and we don't want it to be negative. So we might say if the value of the variable num is less than 0, if that's true, then we're going to change num to have the value of 0. So if the value of num is less than 0, we'll change num to 0. Otherwise, we'll just leave it alone. We're not doing anything to it. So the following example is a little bit strange. We have an if statement that says 5 as the condition. Well, remember that anything that isn't 0 is a way of representing true in C. So that's a true expression, and therefore we're going to execute the action and print, yes, this is true. So it does print, yes, this is true. So that's a little strange, but it is valid C code. Now this is actually somewhat similar. Be careful with the or. So let's say we ask the user to enter the letter Y or N. So we're asking a yes or no question, and we store the user's character in a variable named letter. So if we're asking for Y or N, we'd probably want the user to be able to enter either uppercase or lowercase. So if we want to find out whether their letter is equal to Y, okay, we might say something like this, for example, in an if statement. Letter equals lowercase y or uppercase y. Well, that's probably not what we meant, and that is actually always going to be true. So this part, letter equals lowercase y, that's going to be either false or true, depending on the value of the variable letter. Okay, so that's either true or false. We don't know what the value of letter is. But then we have an or, and we have this y on the right-hand side. Now y is not 0, so y is a way of representing true. So now we have either true or false, or true. Well, if either one is true, then the whole thing is true. So the entire thing is true regardless of the value of the variable letter. So what we probably wanted to say is if letter is equal to lowercase y, or letter is equal to uppercase y, but we didn't say that. We just said or y. So be careful about how you write expressions using the or. Here's another thing to be careful about, extra semicolons. So a semicolon by itself in C is a valid statement. It's called the empty statement or the null statement, and it doesn't do anything, but it's a valid statement. So because of that, you can run into trouble if you have extra semicolons. So let's take a look at this if statement. This says if the value of some variable x is greater than or equal to 2, and the value of some variable x is less than or equal to 7. So if x is greater than or equal to 2, and x is less than or equal to 7, then, oh, we're not printing OK. This is actually the action. So a semicolon by itself is a valid statement, and since in C the action is the next statement, whatever that happens to be, this semicolon, this null statement, becomes the action. And this printf, even though it's indented to look like it's the action, actually has nothing to do with the if statement. It's just the next statement. So this is always going to print OK. So if x is in this range, we're going to do nothing. Otherwise, we skip doing nothing. So pretty much we do nothing. And then we're going to print OK regardless. So again, it sort of executes like this. If the value of the expression is true, then that's the action that we're going to execute, or skip if the value of the expression is false, and then we're going to print OK regardless. So again, be really careful. Don't put an extra semicolon after the condition in an if statement, because that is going to become the action.